We're supposed to tell a story about the show. I remember when Jennifer asked me about that, I was like, I don't know that I have any specific stories from the show. There's actually only one story about my experience in the show that really pops into my brain, and I wasn't sure whether it was the right one to tell, but considering this introduction, it seems perfect, actually. It was a very special experience doing that show. It's one of the, I've been blessed to work on some really wonderful productions with some great, creative artists, but it was probably the smartest production that I've ever been a part of. It was just very intelligently written and very intelligently designed, both in terms of the text itself, but just the manner in which they structured the show. It operated on so many different levels, and like they said in the introduction, I mean, it wasn't just a piece that made you think about the story. It really made you feel what was going on with these boys, and it blended that line between minstrelsy and naturalism. The minstrel show portion of the show really told the story of the Scottsboro Boys as a minstrel show, but in between those scenes, you got the experience of them going through it and being forced to tell their story through minstrelsy, which is a whole other thing. And the show was funny and entertaining, but it was communicated in such a way that made the audience uncomfortable with what they were laughing at and what they were experiencing, which is what theater is supposed to do. Not necessarily make you feel uncomfortable, but make you feel. And it should make you feel a wide variety of things, and I think that's wonderful about it. But, it was a special experience, both from working on it down at the Atlantic Theater Company, which is where we did it. They wanted to be away from the heart of Broadway, where they could kind of finish their final work. And also then moving into the Vineyard, which is a really wonderful family that nurtures work and nurtures artists. It was just a really great experience being with everybody. And our cast, too. Such a small cast, but, very young, developing artists, but also people like Coleman Domingo, who, is just tremendous in everything he does. I first saw him in Passing Strange, and John Cullum, who was also just tremendous in everything he does, and he's been doing things for a long time. But one story that does pop into mind for me about Scottsboro Boys is that when we were doing this show, and in my experience, every creative team kind of loses their friggin' minds come tech and preview. It's true. It's just, they just get to the point where they've been moving along and they've been looking at it for so long, and they're preparing for critics to come in and they start being like, oh wait, why did we do that? Maybe we shouldn't do this. They start asking the wrong questions. And I remember I'm the kind of actor, like, once I get, like, two notes about the same thing, I'm just like, okay, wait, what are you seeing? What is it you're trying to find here? And there's a song in the show called It's Gonna Take Time that John Cullum sings, the interlocutor, who is the old, venerated southern white man who loves the way of life. And he sings this song to Haywood, who's, he's imprisoned, and he's falsely imprisoned for this crime he didn't commit. And he says to him, well, it's going to take time, man. Things will turn out right. It's going to be okay. It's going to take time. But it's a very patronizing song. It's like, it's brutal to experience as an actor on stage. And they were giving us notes on the lines leading in and out of it, and also they kept shifting some lyrics. And so finally I came to them, and I was just like, it was like the week we were going to open. I was like, what is it you all are getting, or what's going on? What are we trying to do here? And they kind of hemmed and hawed for a second, but then they were like, we just don't want people to feel like this song is the message of the show. Because it was also like the penultimate song of the show. And they said we're just worried that people will think that this kind of patronizing message is what our show is about. And I said to them, I was like, I don't really know any other way to put this, but and I understand your fears, because as it was talked about when we moved to Broadway, it's this team of 4 white people telling this story about these 9 black boys who were misused and forgotten. And so I understand the self-consciousness there, but I said to them, I was like, you all are telling the truth. And it's beautiful what you've done. Otherwise, we wouldn't be up here performing it and being moved by it as we are. And also I said, it's like, you've moved forward with such clear vision at this point. Like, you haven't let your whiteness get in the way. Don't do it now. I was like, you trusted in the truth of what you're doing, and you're honoring these boys in this story. I was like, so just trust it. It's just also a debate we had about there's a blackface section in this show, and all the elements in this show are very controversial, and they're hard for people to take in different ways. But the piece as a whole, I just told them, was like, your vision is honest, and it is real, and what it evokes from the people who see it is what is there, and that's what's important. And you know, it's really funny. You forget that, you know, it's Kander and Ed, and Susan Stroman and Tommy Thompson. Like these people, they've written incredible shows. They've done incredible work. But even these legends of the business, everybody questions their work. You know, everybody asks questions, and we should. But you have to trust yourself sometimes, and that's important. So that's my experience. Try to remember the lyrics to go back home. I got Motown in my head from all that. Lying all alone, I'm thinking, staring at the stars. I'll wonder, since I've been away, I'm lonely when I'm gonna go back home. Walking through the world, things happen right before your eyes. Things happen, soon enough you're lost and thinking, when I'm gonna go back home. Oh me, oh my, time goes slow. Where's it gone to? I don't know, but maybe times will turn. I pray so. Maybe someday I'll get lucky. Someone's gonna say, all right, son, take the train and go back home. Hop a freight and go back home. Sometimes I feel like I'm still on a moving freight, you know? Nothing's standing still, everything just rumbling. Looking up at the face of that lazy moon and wondering what's ahead for me. Where's it gone to? I don't know, but maybe times will turn. I pray so. Maybe someday I'll get lucky. Someone's gonna say, all right, son, take the train and go back home. Hop a freight